Back. Thank you. Tom, when you finish, you just put it on the table.
I will.
Thank you.
Oh, stupid clock.
It's okay. All right. Well, we have a great turnout. Thank you so much for coming. I see familiar faces from Monday, and I'm very happy you're here. I'm happy you're here if it's your first time, and I'll be happy if you attend every meeting. I speak on behalf of the board, and I'd like to actually introduce the board if that's all right with you. Some of you may not know who we are. And so, Rolf, Matt, Barbara, Scott, Dave, and Jan. I knew I saw you, Jan. So thank you for being here. And I want to start out by saying that we are volunteers. That might not be a surprise to you, but we are volunteers. And I also wanted to make mention of something that struck me today, and that is that we don't benefit from an increase any more than anyone else. We aren't going to come away better unless we have you on board. And so we aren't instituting a mandatory anything. This is a vote. And we encourage you to listen to this presentation, hear it out, not only hearing, but listening. And with an open mind and an open conscience, you make your decision based on what you feel is right for your family, yourself, and our neighborhood. Because I think that's a critical element that may be lost, is that it is a vote. And there's information here that you don't see in documents, maybe that you look up, maybe light will be shined in areas that you had missed in Google Docs, which there is a form both here and in the back that gives you access, if you don't already have it, to our Google Drive where the documents have been uploaded. Our goal is to be transparent with you and to be sincere and honest and to serve you. That's why every one of us are here. Is we're serving Bal Harbour. We're not doing this for fun, I promise. We have not had a fun few months. The things that hurt you hurt us too. The things that are gonna affect us down the road affect us too. So will you please keep that in mind? We're people too. We're volunteers and we wanna work for you. So, thank you. All right, so what we've got tonight, for those of you that don't already know, is we have a presentation by Scott Stillman. It was created by many, many hours of the board working together, specifically our finance committee working together. They did individual studies and then they came together and crunched numbers and worked figures and budgets and all that sort of thing that really is way above my pay grade, so to speak. But it was well done. Thank you. Usually people hear me fine. Can everybody hear me okay? Oh, right. Okay. I'll just hold it. All right. At any rate, so there's a lot here. There is a lot to be discussed. When Scott finishes his presentation, 20-ish or so minutes, we'll open the floor up to question and answers. And so if you want to take notes or If you already know what you want to ask, we welcome your questions. We may have to limit it because if things go really, really long, we can't be here 3-4 hours. But we're going to make every effort to answer every question. And you're welcome to answer another question, but we may skip you to get to somebody else who hasn't had a question yet. And then we'll try to get back to you. So we'll make every effort to answer every question that you have. I do wanted to go ahead and remind you that we're here to be neighbors. We're not enemies, even if we disagree on things. Please be respectful to people, and when they're speaking, please don't speak over anyone, and just wait your turn, and then you can actually have your opportunity to talk about what's important to you. All right, so little housekeeping stuff. So without further ado, I'll invite Scott to come up here and begin his presentation. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. For the Zoomers. All right. So my 15-minute presentation is probably a little bit longer than 20 minutes. We're going to work on it. But my name is Scott Stillman. I'm going to try and talk about two things. Who am I? How did I get up here? And what did I find? That's three things. So this is Bal Harbour. We live in a great place. Who am I? And I'm telling you this because it's a full circle of how I came up here. I'm a certified financial planner, grew up as a military brat, went to Texas A&M. Thank you. I have a degree in finance, a master's in financial planning, a master's in chartering of life insurance, and I'm about a month, 6 weeks away from a master's in philanthropy. My office, I own a financial planning firm across the lake in Watergate. And basically what I do is I help individuals and families, small businesses and nonprofits basically do a lot of the things that we're talking about today. After doing this for more than 20 years, you do a lot of self-reflection because you're forced to tell people exactly what reality is, and you start to learn what your core values are. I have my two main core values. My first core value is community. When Jennifer and I decided that we were going to move back on land, we lived on a sailboat for 13 years. And when we decided we were going to move back on land, we found this little townhome over on Sailboat, and we did a basic due diligence, and then we started walking around, and there was a little gnome garden behind the bush that was just the cutest little thing. And you walk the neighborhood and it looks really nice, and everybody waves to you. People will stop and talk. You know, I did it with several other people that have moved in recently, but when we were walking around, we stopped a couple of people just to ask, how's the neighborhood? And people stop and they talk, and they're very nice here. And so community, we really wanted to move into the neighborhood. My second core value is, I always get chopped up when I talk about it, is financial security. Unless you've had to make the decision, do we pay for a place to live or we pay for food? You don't get that as a core value. And so that is where I'm coming from. And it's kind of what I've come through here. We moved in January 21, and everything was great. Started going to the board meetings and whatnot. At the beginning of this fiscal year, I really started to pay attention. And I started to get a little bit scared. I have a big weakness. And my biggest weakness is this big word, confabulate. I've been working on it for a decade, but what it actually means is, given partial information, I subconsciously make up the worst case scenario that's going on. And then I believe that in my head that that's the worst case scenario. And then I'd start writing letters and you know, calling people and just making an ass out of myself. So now I realize that that's a problem, and I've been working on it for years. And when I see those triggers in myself, I take a step back and I make an ass out of myself trying to get the information so that I know what's true instead of just believing half truths. And so because I started doing that, I started hammering, what's going on? Why are we doing these things? When somebody stood up in the May meeting and said, we're not going to have enough money to pay for bulkheads and the marina repairs, I freaked out. So all of a sudden, I have board members in my house asking me to come help them. You know, there was an opening on the board, help them with all of this presentation. And so I'm going to talk about my findings. We have a lot of really tough decisions to make. None of them are really good, but I want you with information to know what is going to be the best information for you and your family so that you have all of the full information. And don't believe just what I say. Go out and walk the property. Take the next couple weeks and walk every single road in between around the houses, the bulkhead, the promenade. Look at the roofs, look at the siding, look at the bushes and the grounds and the pool and the tennis court and the marina and the, I never remember the retaining walls. Thank you. So I'm going to talk about what I found the history is, what the current status is, and then some possible solutions that we've come up with. The May meeting. The May meeting was through the beginning of the year at the board meetings. You heard you looked in their eyes and you saw that stuff was not right. And they started asking these questions, and then we had the special May meeting. And in the special May meeting, the question was, should we tear out the marina? We don't have enough money to repair it. No, legal says it's in our deed restrictions. We're required to have a slip for every house. We need to figure out a way. Well, then the question was insurance. Insurance is almost triple. What are we going to do? Well, we're shopping around and we're getting better quotes and we're trying to get everything bundled together. But insurance is a huge deal. Financial planning. They showed up in my house, so that's what I'm doing. Committees. They asked for volunteers to help on the committees. And I'm going to list a whole bunch of them here at the end of the presentation. I don't think I heard maybe one person volunteer at the May meeting. Coordination with the city of Nassau Bay and the Hilton to maybe solve part of our marina problem. There is talk. The mayor of Nassau Bay has some money. The Hilton has some money. They all want to do a group marina, maybe. There's nothing written down. There's no agreements. We're in talks to try and solve those problems. But the main part of that meeting that came out was we need to do a reserve study. We don't know what we don't know. And so let's actually figure out what we don't know. So before I go into that, the history is the green line is our income history. How much have we brought in every year? I'm sorry, I'm in your way. The red line is what we've been spending every year. The exciting part is this yellow line. And I am absolutely certain that almost everybody here is not going to like what I have to say during this entire presentation. If I've done that, then I kind of have done my goal in making sure that you understand what's going on. But the yellow line is our reserves. Now here, we have scheduled planned maintenance that had to be done. I'm going to talk a lot about roofs, but roofs have to be done on a certain schedule. If you don't do a roof in that schedule, insurance won't cover it. Now we're shopping out the insurance and trying to get better deals. Maybe the new insurance will allow us to go more than 20 years, but on a 20-year roof, on a 30-year roof, right now our insurance, if we have metal roofs, you have to replace it every 20 years. Or else they will not insure it. So that has to be done, and a big chunk of this is those roofs that had to be done. Then we had Harvey. And then we had in here Uri and Nicholas. And then the non-residential commercial cost of building in our area has gone from, inflation was at 36% during this time. And the cost of construction is up 82%, twice inflation. We are where we are. This is where we are. Right here at this end, we're going to finish the year right at about $400,000, but probably a little bit less than $400,000. You can go onto the Google Drive and get all of this information, that all of the historical documents from 2011 through now are in Google Drive 2011 through 22 folder. You can look at each individual one of them and get these exact numbers and put this back together yourself. So this is our starting point today. Current status. I'm going to talk about the reserve, which, oh my God, is it so exciting. Try to contain yourself, but really, it is boring. It's a little bit of numbers, but I want you to understand how we come up with the numbers that we've come up with. And then I'm going to talk about general operating or general maintenance and operations. What is the reserve? There's two reasons to have a reserve. The first reason is emergencies. Bad stuff happens. If you're not prepared for the bad stuff that happens, you don't get to fix things. So the reserve is sitting there to, this is Uri and Nicholas and Harvey were very expensive. This was not us, but if you live in this neighborhood and you've walked any of the roads, you know that there was a fire just down the street in 2001. They had low reserves. They all have an assessment of somewhere between, I've heard $35,000 and $40,000 before they can move back in. Say again? Thank you. It was right after we moved in. Yes. And they're continuing to have to pay their homeowners association while they're living somewhere else. But could we wait until the end before we start talking about that stuff? More than happy to talk about that, but if we stop, it'll last 3 hours, and I'm down to 25 minutes. So, what is the reserve study? The reserve study, the industry standard for a reserve study is 3 to 5 years. This is the first one that I think we've ever done, and I'm not blaming old boards, but if you don't know what you don't know that you're supposed to do it. When they decided that they were going to do a reserve study at the May meeting, I was like, that's awesome. So what is a reserve study? A reserve study is, what are the capital assets that you own that have to be replaced regularly? What is their useful life? The roofs, the useful life is 20 years. The bulkheads, some of them are 30 years, depending on the type that you put in. The tennis court, I believe, is 7 or 8 years to get resurfaced. I think it's 20 years before it has to get reconcreted. The pool has to be resurfaced about every 10 years or so. The bulkheads, the retaining walls, 35, 40 years. What are their useful lives? And how old are they? Where are they in that cycle? If we've got a roof that we just replaced last year, it's got 20 years left. If we have a roof that has to be replaced next year, it has to be replaced next year. And then what is the current cost for all of those things? So you look at these retaining walls were just done last month. They probably have another 30 to 40 years on them. Go look at it. The grass is just starting to come up. They put in the sprinklers. the grounds in the pool around here look really nice. The concrete is starting to crack a little bit, but it doesn't look horrible. This retaining wall was just redone last month because it was starting to fall off. These roofs were done last year, and when I'm talking about the roof section, we're going to talk about those roofs that were just redone last year. And this retaining wall looks like it's in really good shape. This retaining wall, mid-range, it probably has a while to go. The tennis court, when I was talking about cracking, that's going to need some major work in the next couple years. This roof has to be done next year. That bulkhead is probably needing to be replaced 3 or 4 years ago. This is the marina. It looks horrible. There's not a whole lot of emergency work that has to be done. They shored up a lot of stuff after Nicholas, but that's past its useful life right there, and we're just kicking it down the road. So when you add all those things together, you get a graph that looks like this. Where are they? What are they going to cost? When do they need to be done? This is the next 3 years. This is roofs that have to be done, a little bit of marina work that needs to be done. We've got some bulkhead that I just showed you pictures of that really needs to be done. It's about $550,000. You look at the next year and it's about $750,000. You look out at 2036, there's $1 million, $1.25 million worth of roofs that are going to have to be done in 2036. If we're not prepared for those people are going to lose insurance. That was a lot of the 2015-ish construction that was in that red line that they had to do, because that's 20 years back, 2015, 2016. 2036. So the next part of the reserve, you take that graph and you say, how old is it divided by how long should it last? Where on that graph does it actually stand? And you take that fraction and you multiply it by how much it costs today to replace. So let's look at those roofs that I was talking about. These roofs were done in last year on starboard. They're basically a year old. They have 20 years left in their life. So they have 1/20th of $112,500 to replace that group of roofs. Before we replaced it, if we had done this reserve analysis, we would have $112,500 would be the number. Today, that number is $5,625. So when you look at the reserve, we should have 100% reserve, $5,625 to replace those roofs in 20 years. That's how the reserve is done. In fact, well, before I talk about that, if we do this with all of the things that were in those graphs, and we bring that out to how much we should have, roofs, siding, tennis court, pool, canals, bulkheads, marina, we have $4 million is 100% reserve. Where do we stand? Almost all of the coastal states have mandated that HOAs will maintain 100% reserve in their HOA. One of my clients in Florida is going through this. In their HOA, the state has mandated that they will come up from 30% to 100% in the next 5 years. They're having state mandated assessments every year to get to that 100% number. Texas does not have that mandate. They've talked about it in the legislature for the last couple of sessions since Harvey. It's not going to take another storm before they actually enact something like that. and we really should be prepared for it. But why are states mandating stuff like that? It's because bad things will happen. And if you're not prepared for those bad things, it's disastrous. 70 to 100% is considered good. 30% is considered weak. So I've told you the numbers. We're finishing the year at about 400,000. We should have about $1 million in our reserves. That gives us a reserve of 10%. Actually, a little bit less, but it's about 10%. I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you this because you have the right to know. You should know where we currently stand. And this is a presentation that we're going to be giving on a regular basis for the foreseeable future to let you know where we currently stand and how we're improving things. But right now, that is a huge concern. One Harvey or one major fire or one Ike or a tornado that goes through that we just had last year north of us could be devastating. What are the consequences of a low reserve? FHA has their own formula, but they say 10%, we're not going to loan to anybody in an HOA that has less than 10%. So if we drop below 10% and they find out about it, they will not allow homeowners to use their program. Banks have the right. If the bank asks, what are your numbers? And they look at the studies and they say, you're too low, they will force the HOA to raise it before they'll even look at refinancing or HELOC loans. If we don't have enough reserves, it forces a deferment of stuff that needs to be done. You look at those bulkheads that we were talking about. Those should have been done years ago, but it's been pushed and pushed and pushed. I'm not blaming. Boards hate raising these fees. This conversation is not a fun conversation to have. But deferment of mandatory replacement can cause uninsurability or reduced insurability, not just to the HOA, but to individual homeowners. And then something bad. The new houses just over here had their, what was it? They were built last year and the bulkhead fell over last winter. You know, we had low water and the bulkhead fell out. You know, you're talking about a $500,000 repair with $400,000 in reserve. If a bulkhead blows out, you can't say we're not going to do that this year. There's ways to go about fixing it, but we need to talk about these situations. All right. Operating and general maintenance. So I've looked at the books that I can look at in the last month and a half. I've looked at the cash flow statements, all of the bank record, the balance sheets and income statements, and the reviews from the audit firm are on the Google Drive. I want to know, I have made sure that it's available for anybody that wants to go look at those documents. Nothing looks out of place. The management of the HOA has the full confidence of the board. They are doing a good job. The problem has been they've been asking for money and money has been tight and stuff. The board's job is not to micromanage. The board's job is to oversee, suggest, direct, and raise money. So this is our proposed budget at $600 next year. Everything over here is operations and management. General maintenance. This is the capital replacement section of it. This is wages. It is our salaries for our employees. It's also the contract laborers that we bring in to do special jobs. Insurance, we're shopping out and hopefully we'll get better prices, but it is a huge chunk. It's about 3 times as much as it used to be. Townhome maintenance, common property maintenance, that stuff is not going to change. We're not talking about we're not going to be able to fix stuff, that we're not going to be able to mow the grass. That stuff right now is we're considering as part of our fixed cost because it is a running engine. If you look at this engine and you don't know and you haven't studied and you don't know the best way to go about doing it, and you start ripping pieces out of it, eventually it's going to completely fail. If you do it diligently and study it and look at each individual part, we can find efficiencies, but we can't find efficiencies tomorrow. All right, so we have some short-term solutions. The Google Drive. There's flyers, emails have gone out, it's been posted on Facebook. I set it up to get all of the records that we could put legally out there for at least this year. The review from the audit company is out there. We have the annual records from the previous through 2011 are there. A lot of the research that we've done to come up with this. I'm sorry? Okay. It is getting ready to rain if your car window's down. So there's policies. There's all of our forms and our documents, our budgets. The meeting that we had for the board meeting and the meeting that we had on Monday, we zoomed and recorded it. It's on that drive. The meeting notes and the recordings. So we approved the monthly numbers from the month of August, July. Those will be up as soon as in the next day or so. But we want to have a little subcommittee. This is the first talking about subcommittees. We're asking people for help, people with computer knowledge, people that can do stuff. For accessibility, the website is a horrible website. If you go to it and you have Norton, it forbids you from going there because it's not a secure website. It has information, it's not horrible, but it needs updating. Somebody talked about a portal. OCRing the CC&Rs. What that means is turning those scanned documents into a PDF that you can search. I want to look at awnings. Hit Control F and say awnings, and it'll take you to the document that's in there. Right now, you have to read through 50, 60 pages worth of scanned documents in order to figure it out. But asking for help to do that, because it's not going to take a lot of time. It just takes more knowledge than I have in order to do that. Increasing the maintenance fee, $600. We need to cover short-term capital, this capital shortfall that we were talking about. And we need to rebuild our reserves. As you fix things, the requirement for the reserves goes down. And so within a couple years, there's about $1.5 million that's going to be pushed out 20 or 30 years on that reserve calculation, which means instead of $4 million, maybe it's going to be more in the neighborhood of $3 million, which makes us look a lot better. So let's look at the budget. Here's the 3 proposals. $600 if you vote $500, or if we're forced to just raise it, if you vote us and say, absolutely not, you join the protest that's next weekend or Saturday and say, hey, we're not going to give you any more money, and it's $663. $463, sorry. What does that mean? The budget has to be done in the next month or so. So We cannot change, it would be almost impossible to change our operating and management maintenance budgets on a short notice in order to not get it in the budget for this year. What we need to do is work on it over a year. So that's why we're saying that is a fixed expense for this coming year. We also want to force ourselves within our budget to put money into the reserves so that we're building back into that place where if we do have a major fire like they just had, we're going to be able to rebuild. So that leaves 463, leaves about $270,000 to do the repairs. I'm sorry, not repairs. Capital replacement items. Repairs are going to get done. It leaves $550 a month, leaves $426,000 to do those capital replacement items. And $600 leaves $554,000 to do those capital replacement items. If we do this at 550,000 and we do a little bit of saving for this, we can get through the next 2 years. In the next 2 years, we're going to have this conversation at least 4 or 5 times. That allows us to move these things out here so that they're not such a burden on the reserve component, and gives us some breathing room to slowly build up our reserves and still maintain all of the things that need to be fixed. Long-term things that we absolutely want to do, but we can't do them tomorrow. Reserve analysis. We want homeowners to be part of the process. We want to have a subcommittee whose only job it is to sit down and look at all of the components that we put together for the reserve. Did we miss anything? Systematically look at every single one of those and go look at it and say, with the construction people getting bids, where is this? Where does it need, where in its life is it? Does it need to be moved back a couple years? Does it need to be moved forward a couple years? If we're constantly reviewing those things, then I got excited. Sorry. Sorry about that, Zoomers. We're back on. We're not professionals, and we want homeowners to be invested in the process. If you have a subcommittee who gets together monthly on a Saturday or monthly on a Tuesday and analyzes all of the things that are in the reserve, we really should be doing this reserve analysis for every year for the next decade. We cannot let it slide, but getting people involved in the process will alleviate a lot of the problems that we've had. Operations and maintenance review. It's kind of too late to make any drastic changes this year. So we're looking at for the foreseeable future. We want a subcommittee that doesn't go through and micromanages, but looks at all of the little parts of the operations and management. Sorry, they just came in the mail today and I didn't get a chance to charge them all the way. There are sign-up sheets in the back if you want to be part of that committee. Document review. Every board that I've ever been on has a systematic study, I say systematic a lot, has a systematic study of their documents. Is this appropriate? Is it what we want? Is it legal? Have the laws changed? We need to review those on a regular basis and have our bylaws, our CC&Rs. The CC&Rs are rules that we've put together because that's what we want to have. If we want to have them, we need to enforce them. If we don't want to have them, we need to change them. And having a subcommittee that's job it is to sit there and read through it, make recommendations, and bring it to the board for a communication, bring it to the townhome or to the homeowners for communication. Ground subcommittee. One of the other HOAs here has the Monday Meanderers. Another one has the Wednesday Wanderers. We don't want a bunch of people looking and counting, somebody said plants, counting you have 4 plants and you're only allowed to have 5 plants, looking in people's windows for problems. We want people that are walking around the property saying, oh, a branch fell, I'm going to put it by the street. Or a big branch fell and we need to tell somebody. Or have you noticed that this foundation is having trouble and bringing it to the maintenance crew? Or this bulkhead looks like it's starting to slough off and that probably needs to be looked at right away. Something fell and hit that roof. Did you guys know about it? And then also the CC&Rs, if people are doing things that we've decided we don't want to have in our community, they need to bring it to our attention, bring it to the management's attention so that we can do something about it. If we don't want that as part of our community, then we need to decide we don't want it as part of our community. And we want a group of people, of homeowners that are moopers, that, my word, moopers, matter out of place, walking around, there's trash. Every trash day, there's trash out on the street. Wind blows it over, the trash guys throw it up and it comes out of their truck. It'd be cool if we had the little neighborhood that they got together every week and walked the entire property to make sure that there's not really major problems that need to be taken care of. Improvements. We don't have a lot of money, but we need to talk about how do we make our lives better? This is, what is it? Seabrook Marina, right there on the bend. Just put these in last year. It's an awning over their pool. Portofino just put one in this year. They're not very expensive, but should we think about it? Does it cost $5,000? Does it cost $10,000? Let's get a subcommittee that wants to put together improvements. ADA accessibility. All of our properties are grandfathered in, but we have an aging population and we want people to be able to walk and go places. I saw somebody walking up here for the meeting and there's we don't have a ramp. It would be kind of cool if we had a ramp. Somebody the other day was talking about the fact that they can't go to the pool because they can't get in because they don't have the ability to get in. That pavilion probably will cost a lot of money, but it would be kind of cool out here. Maybe something in 4 or 5 years. Maybe a little pavilion, because most of the people that rent out the Windermere ask about a pavilion to get married in. Would we rent it out more and have less of a burden on us if we're renting out the Windermere because we put in a little gazebo? And then a fire pit. These are all things that I've seen over the last 3 weeks, people asking about. Fire pit doesn't really cost anything, but is that something that we want? Is it, where would we put it? What's it going to cost? And then creating a standard that we all use to go out there and bring our chairs and have a little fire. But putting together proposals to the board for those types of things. We are committed to the long-term things. All of these things we are committed to. What we want is for homeowners to volunteer to help. At the May meeting, they asked for volunteers to help. We're serious. There's sign-up sheets in the back. Knowing why we're asking for $600 is important. We're not doing it for our own benefit. We're doing it because this is our community and it's detrimental to everybody if we don't do those things. The vote is September 28th. So some of the questions that have come up. Where is the current money? The balance sheet is on the Google Drive. Google Drive 2023 June, you look at the balance sheet, it tells you what banks the money's at. What have we spent this year? You can go back through the entire year, but June has the latest numbers. The profit and loss statement shows you every little section of money that we've spent for the year. 39% is a big increase. Yes, it is. There's no getting around it. You now know why we're asking for $600. I could lie and say, let's kick the can down the road. I could ignore it and not have this conversation at all. But for my peace of mind, I want everybody to know I want this to be an awesome community. And these are the things that it's going to take in order to maintain. Somebody said I was a salesman for new cars and they were going to try and sell them a Cadillac. What we have is a 2016 Hyundai. It's got about 80,000 miles on it. The oil hasn't been changed in about 20,000 miles. It's never had a big overhaul and the tires are bald. It's been detailed every single month and it looks awesome, but there's some major things that need to be done. There might be a light or so on. It is not the end of the world. We're not going to fall off a cliff. But if we don't address these problems, big things will happen. And those are the solutions. Oh, HOA comparison. Townhomes versus condos. Was research to see where everybody stood. We looked at all the amenities, it's like a 5-page research analysis on HOAs. We did not use that to come up with the $600. We just used it as what are other similarly comparable places and what do they cost? I don't really like how the ballots look. Can we cancel the thing? The vote? The attorney put together the ballots. He addressed it and sent it out. People have already sent their ballots back. We have a whole pile of them up in the office. We can't change the ballots now that they've gone out. Threat of not funding. We're not threatening not funding stuff. The roofs are going to be done. If we have mandatory stuff that has to be done, our options are we're probably going to have to borrow money to do it. And then we're probably going to have a special assessment. There's no threat. The consequence of voting no is we still have to do stuff. Where's the money going to come from? I've never seen this before. We haven't. This is something new. And a lot of it was people just didn't know what they didn't know. They're volunteers. And now that we know the procedures that need to be done for a reserve analysis, you're going to be seeing it at almost all of the major meetings that we have throughout the year. You haven't done a good job for the last 10 years. Why are you going to trust us now? Well, we're not asking you to trust us. We're asking you to join us. If you want to be on the board, there's a sign-up sheet to be on the board. You know, if you want to be recognized as somebody doesn't want to be on the board anymore, we can fill a vacant seat. Vacancies are going to be coming up in next year to vote on new board members. You know, you always want new blood on the board so that you don't have the same old ideas going on. Sign up. If you want to help for one of the committees, sign up. Now, signing up for the board doesn't mean you're going to be on the board. You still have to be voted on and approved. But we want people to help. Where can you help? Sign up for the board. There's a grounds committee, the MOOP committee, the architectural committee, the finance committee, the improvements committee, operations and maintenance, the yachts committee, there's supposed to be a comma there, the documents committee, the social committee, tennis, accessibility. These are all places where you can help and decide how you want to tell us how to lead. We're not asking you to give us the authority to do everything. We're asking you to participate in the process. All right, now be gentle with us.
Anybody that really needs to go, or we all good to move along and then just go if we need to? We're good? All right, great. Okay, we have a few requests for your questions. I'm sure you're anxious.
Hello. I'd like for you to state your name when you stand up to speak, and we would appreciate if you'd stand up if you can and it's comfortable to do so. State your name and where you live and how long you've lived here. And then I'm going to also try to take notes of that information as well as your questions so that we have all of them documented. Okay. So you can just raise your hand, and the first person, I see you.
Wait.
I'm Liz. We were on the Zoom call the other day, and when people were asking questions, other people we could hear talking around, and so we heard a lot of vibrations and couldn't hear really what was going on.
Okay. So they still all right. So what she said, she tried to listen, Liz, tried to listen to questions on Zoom. And what was happening is she wasn't able to actually hear the answers to the question. There was a lot of vibration, maybe people moving around, as well as maybe people not speaking as loudly as they can or should. So if you will, maybe just like
raise your voice a little bit more than you normally would for the benefit of all of us, certainly those that are on Zoom. So thank you. Did you have any more comment about that? No, thank you though. I appreciate it.
I want to say first, Scott, thank you for that 15-minute production. And I'd like to come up here. And I appreciate what you said, Madam President, about the board. I realize that all of you are volunteers, you don't get paid, and I appreciate it very much. My name is Jack Thomas, and I live at 18204 Starboard Drive. This is the Bal Harbour bylaw. I would like to say, oh, I'm sorry. The actions of the board are in violation of the bylaws. The bylaws specifically state that the board of directors can adjust the maintenance fee on January 1 based on the CPI index increase for the previous year. This can be done without the membership's approval. The board did not comply last year with this proposal and does not comply now. On November 2022, the board increased our maintenance fee from $385 to $430, a 11.7% increase. This violated the bylaws by not being January 1 and a greater increase than the CPI index for 2022. This year, they are stating that they can increase our maintenance fee from $430 to $463 without membership approval. This is a 7.7% increase. The CPI index increase for 2023 will not be announced by our federal government until early November. Right now, it is 3.7%. The maintenance fee of $600 per month is 39.5% increase, and $550 a month is a 28% increase. Now, after Scott's 15-minute presentation, which I think you did very good, and pointing out the problems we've got, but this also, if you increasing our maintenance fee to $600 a month, when you add on that the insurance that each of us have to pay, flood and homeowners, and the if you're paying on your home, paying a note, you add all that up, it makes sense to move from Bal Harbour and get in a very nice, expensive apartment complex. It would be cheaper and financially stable. So I realize what you're saying. We certainly need the money, and you made a very decent presentation, but you also got to recognize that we here have financial responsibilities of our own that we have to take care of. And Madam President, if I'm wrong, I would welcome your rebuttal.
Thank you. I will refer the question to Barbara. Barbara, would you just step up here, please, and comment to him? Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, in order for people to hear you.
The gentleman is correct about the January, it being in our CCNRs. It's one of the questions I raised with the board. We were to talk about it. What the date of the increase in November has been done apparently for a good number of years, and it was practice. I don't know how it got started. It was before my time here, but you are correct about the January it being in the CCNRs. However, what I do want to tell you is that the $430 that it was raised to was based on, it could have been raised higher, let me put it that way. The Houston County or Houston City district in the CPI is published different than the one for the CPI for the whole country. And it's actually less than the nationwide CPI. I received a copy of it today because they have just increased or just published the one for August. And so it's now out. We won't get the one for October until November. It comes out about mid-month after following October. It's done every other month. It's not done every month. The publication for last year, when they raised it to 430, was based on October of 2021. Because that was what they had available. And it was done, this is October 20. Yeah, that was in October 2022. They raised it based on October 21. So it was a year behind because they didn't have it available. And that early process that they were going through, that was the only data they had. Based on where we are today, August Houston CPI is 271.154, which we, by the formula, divide by 99, which is the CPI of when we got started back in 1982. That gets multiplied by 175. If we were to do it based on August today, it'd be $479.31. That's
still violates
no, I'm saying I didn't say we're doing that. I just calculated it to see what it was. If we wait till October is published, which would be the 1st of November, it's more than likely going to be in that same range. It could be a little higher, it could be a little less.
I just saw it on the financial news, but right now,
But the number that comes from it's the actual CPI that's published for Houston. I mean, this, huh? No, it's the documents require us to use the Houston CPI, which covers from Woodlands to what's the city down south here? Sugar Land, down to Sugar Land. But that's what the documents require us to use, is that CPI from that, and it's done by region. We don't have one that's specifically just Harris County or Nassau Bay. They don't do it that way. This is off the website today. I mean, you can look at it if you want to, but that's where the numbers came from. Because I follow that on their website every month, every time there's a change. And I just calculated it today based on the formula that we have. And like I said, if we were using August, which we're not, it would be August of 2023, it would generate a fee of $479.31. It will fluctuate up and down. The 430 was done based on the year before. So you are correct. It does not exactly follow the documents, but if they had followed the documents, it would have been a higher CPI that they were working with because it would have been a year later, is all I'm trying to say to you. And we can get on the website and look at the numbers, but I mean, that is a fact.
One of the points that you're not getting is, it's not year over year.
Yeah.
There's a factor of this year's CPI against the year that the HOA started, and that factor determines the number. It's not how much did CPI go up last year, it's how much has it gone up since the HOA started, and that's what you're allowed to raise the HOA fee to. And it's in the documents with this formula, which are on the Google Drive.
That is the Houston area CPI, which today, as of August, was 271.154, divided by back in 1982, the base year was 99, calculated times 175 is where you get the number. There isn't any fudge factor in there. It's right off of the what the CPI Bureau of Labor Statistics publishes, and they do it, by every other month.
The year-end budgets that are in the Google Drive have that document as their final page for all of them going back through 2011.
Now,
Certainly.
That's not what the bylaws say. Bylaws don't say you take it with Houston or somebody else. Let me finish. They say the federal CPI index,
It
which,
just-
as I pointed out and you confirmed, is the month of October, and they announce it in November. That hasn't even been announced yet.
I understand that.
Yet the board is saying, maybe you increase it, puts it on a figure that's not even out. You can't do it.
We're using a figure from last
They're
year.
using,
No, we're using October of last year.
yeah, they're using a number that's a year old.
Last year, I think it was about 5%. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Well, I didn't bring my whole file because I've been tracking it and I've got a file on that CPI,
Anyway,
but
you're
the
in
four,
violation of the bylaws. So far, you're in violation of the bylaws for this year.
Can I ask, why do you say they're in violation? If they're using the previous year's CPI, and I mean, not that this matters for this, but if they're using the previous year's CPI and passed it in October and it's in November, it's 11 months past the January 1 date. Is that what you're saying? Because they didn't start it on January 1?
Here's what I'll say. They say on January 1, board of directors can increase the maintenance fee, and that maintenance fee can be increased by the amount that the CPI, Consumer Product Index, increased the previous year. So the increase that they did.
I just read them.
They did it in November, they did it in January.
I just didn't bring mine.
Don't know what it was. Yeah.
Don't disrupt.
Okay, I have what you're saying. So it needs to be on January 1.
So you're upset that we raised it 11?
When you won't even know what that figure is until mid-November.
Unless they go by last year.
They can't go by last year. The bylaws say that you gotta increase it on January 1, and you use the increase from the previous year.
Well, we will get that document for Saturday.
Have you got, do you mind if we borrow it?
Did they not read the bylaw?
We did, that's what.
Which, I mean, let me see if you're looking at what we, if there's a,
This.
Yeah.
She admits that she didn't follow the bylaws.
no, what I admit is that we have done it in October based on the previous year, which is actually less than what they could have done. And you're right. It says in the bylaws, wait until January. The actual fee schedule says on January 1 of 1984, and on the first day of January of each year thereafter, the maintenance fee may be computed by multiplying $175 by the fraction, the numerator of which will be the index for the month of October of the immediately preceding year, and the denominator will be the index for the month of October of 1982. That goes on to say, if that is not available, there are ways you can substitute. I'm trying to find where the. But the 175 times the fraction that they're referring to is what I'm talking about here. And you are correct in that it's not been based, the estimate is not based on October this year because it's not out yet.
Based on
it-
October last year.
But it's based on October a year ago.
Thank you for the confirmation.
That you're wrong.
No,
No, I'm right.
It's not
it's
wrong.
not matter.
I'm right.
And she just read, it's a factor, but
It's not
last year's October.
divided by 1982.
This year's loss. He's saying.
Okay, you wanna talk about last year? You didn't do it in January, and last year's CPI index was, I think about 5%. This year, you're saying that you're going to increase it. It hasn't even done it now. Won't be enough.
That is an estimate. At the That's, it hasn't even been raised. I said that's an estimate, it hasn't been raised. These are figures that we're trying to work with, we can come up with a budget.
Okay, well, I hope that you realize that you're not in compliance with the bylaws for that deal. And that you certainly not gonna raise it, can't raise it until January 1.
I agree. That's what the bylaws say.
Right.
Okay, let's
Okay.
move on. We
Alright,
will
go-
table
go.
it and get back. Your name, where you live, please.
Byron Abear. I live in, 18114 Starboard, been here about 8 or 9 years. And my friend Jack was a former, Navy SEAL. Before there was Navy SEALs, so if he seems salty, it's only because he is. But he's a good man. I've known him for 30, 40 years. Look, the issue is we got a problem. We got a problem with, all of us want to maintain the value of our properties. To do that, we're going to have to put some money in. The question is, how do we do that, right? Special assessments seem to have this negative connotation, but it sounds like because the problem with raising, I don't see the problem. I hate starting a sentence that way. I think people's issue with raising the HOA dues is they never go down. And so if we did an assessment to take care of these things, and then we keep our money in our pocket and keep paying the lower, I don't know if y'all thought about that. It doesn't really matter, but I guess I thank you for what you're doing, because we do need to maintain the value of these properties, and they are getting older. And I think the guys do a great job of maintaining them, but that takes money, and everything costs more now. And so it's a complicated problem, and I'm glad you're getting the help that you need. And if I can help, I'm happy to do so. But I don't know what the answer is, but I think the pushback on raising the assessments is people think they're never going to go down. They just keep going up.
I'm sorry, what is your name again?
Byron.
Byron? Did anybody want to address Byron, or are we good with that? Okay, great, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Mark Wadowski, Liz Wadowski. We live on 18207 Starboard Drive. We've had a house there since 2012. We actually started living there more on a full-time basis here in 2021. So again, I want to say some of the same things without spending too much time with it. Appreciate the work that was done. I did spend time studying a lot of the reserve study models and the details on the cost, and there's a lot of information there. I do, having some experience looking at stuff like that, realize that it's hard for a lot of folks with the velocity of all this information coming down on us and then asking on a vote for something so steep in terms of its financial impact, that it's just not too easy just to sign off on it just as it is without a lot more information. So, that being said, looking at some of the studies going forward and some of these projections, it just, appeared to me that they could be a little bit negative biased based on some of the recent years of cost, and it doesn't really look, it forecast forward a number of years, and it shows a pretty serious reserve negative balance based on some of these recent experiences. And maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong. I don't know. There's just so much more to really get your head around that you need to spend more time on it. I think, Scott, you said that, we need to do more studies. One thing I thought was missing was with these kinds of studies, especially when you project or bake in a 4% total cost year over year into your reserve model study, then you want to see a lot of times a lot of the cost efficiencies coupled with that. You kind of couple those two things together, and then you try to build a forecast that looks at the severe case, looks at the better case, and then looks at a case maybe we can live with on a near term horizon. So I didn't really see that, and my only fear kind of couples along with what I think was just said, is that a lot of times you just start signing off on spending more. They become self-fulfilling prophecies. They happen, and then here we are, we get a do loop, we start over again. And, there's other things that need to be addressed future state. And maybe we haven't put the discipline in it yet, which is time. It's not anybody's effort. It's just total, time and, work on everybody's part to find out, how do we want to do things going forward? We don't want a community that's got a cost structure that, is an albatross either. So we want to try to, find the best path forward but give ourselves, enough time to get there. I might get there, with a little more time myself, but just, as, where I sit, it's just, too much too soon. A lot more work needs to be done. I know there's a near-term need, maybe, the special assessment is a mechanism to take care of some serious things, but before you just start hitting numbers, at a higher rate, that we make sure we go into it eyes wide open and you get a lot more, buy-in into, what the process is. But that's just my.
Thank you, Mark. I saw JoJo, yeah. Having that way.
Thank you. Hi, my name's JoJo Finkeldye. I live on Val Harbor. I've been here about 7 years. I also mirror what you said. I appreciate all the work and the presentation that went into this and for bringing these issues to light. I think it definitely woke me up, and definitely it looks like it woke up a lot of the neighbors to make us aware of the issues going on. I just, I agree with what gentleman just said, that I think the problem that I'm having with it is just that, the timing of it, that we need a little bit more time to examine into all, there's obviously some disagreement about the bylaws or what, how to run certain numbers. And so, perhaps the solution is a modest increase on the CPI this year, and then give everybody a chance to examine and to investigate and do their own studies and put these committees together for next year. And the other thing that I'm not completely happy with is the ballot. And Lori, I emailed you today about that, is that it seems a little deceitful not to put all the options there on the ballot. Even if the attorney approved it, it's dishonest. I mean, it doesn't speak to honesty to not have the option.
It doesn't have the option for 463, right?
Right. I'm upset about for those that haven't received the absentee ballot, it only lists the options to raise the increase to 600 or 550, but there's not an option for no increase or the CPI. Right. Yeah.
In the permit data, it clearly says 463 is what we were allowed.
It doesn't say that. It doesn't. Yeah, on the ballot, it does not say that. Okay. Yeah. So I think it leads people to feel that there's dishonesty there. And so that's why I formally suggested in writing today that we invalidate that ballot and resend out another ballot with all options on it. I think that there's transparency there.
Okay, so was there a show of hands? People didn't realize that they had an option with 460 versus 550 versus 600? If you raised your hand and you didn't know you had an option on the ballot.
It's the way the ballot.
Yeah, it's not clear.
No, it's not on the ballot. We knew verbiage, but not on the ballot. So it's a little confusing to your question.
We were under the assumption, and the attorney was too, which is, I respect that email. I hope that I conveyed that to you, that I did. Again, this is a time for us to exchange information. The board will consider it, and then we'll get back with you.
And yeah, I'm just so you know, I'm totally open to an increase if we get the data and I get outvoted, if that's what all the neighbors want. But I don't like it that we weren't given all the options. And so the people that aren't here and that would more likely vote absentee, they may not know that that's an option. So.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name's Christina Lanham. I live at 18037 Bell Harbor. I bought my house fall of 2021, moved in 2022. I also appreciate the presentation and the thoroughness. I think my biggest concern is the immediate hike into a $170 increase, where Bell Harbor is obviously feeling the effects of inflation. I think everyone here is feeling the effects of inflation. I've been keeping my house at 80 all summer and paying $300 for electric, and I'm sweating. It's not great. I think there can be a step up graduation that people can budget for better than versus, oh my gosh, I have to pull $170 out of my budget right now. And it's because I think if I read correctly in the paperwork, it's 237 units. So at 170, that's almost a $500,000 additional a year, which would be about 6.2 million over the 13 years to hit the woohoo moment. But I think, obviously we would cut into that a little bit with a graduated movement, but I just think 170 right off the gate and so quickly is really hard for people to financially make do, especially if they're having things. I mean, I've spent $7,000 in my 2010 Jeep because it just doesn't want to run. So I'm trying to cover all those costs, and now it's like, great, I've got another bill I got to go into, and I understand we need an increase, and I understand we need funds. I just think 170 out the gate is a lot. So, okay.
I feel you. Because we just moved in. Yeah. Let me answer her first. We just moved in a month, or bought the house a month or two before you did. And it sucks that we didn't know that it was there. What we found through the numbers is if you use the CPI and they had raised the rates every year with inflation, we would have had about $2.3 million additional income over the last decade that would have solved the problem. The problem really is that there is a lot of deferred maintenance that is coming due. The analogy that I used was, and it was a play on somebody making fun of me, but it was the Hyundai Elantra that hasn't had its oil changed in the last 20,000 miles. If something happens that we don't have the funds for, all of those things, and you talk to Rick, and there's about $1.25 million that needs to be funded on the bulkhead in the next 3 or 4 years. That's showing in those numbers, but if we kick it down the road more and more and more, if you look at those pictures, you walk the bulkhead and actually look at the bulkhead, not just the bulkhead, but that's a really good, easy example. If we have a blowout that cost $500,000 and we could have saved it by replacing $100,000 worth of bulkhead, that's the decision that we're going to have to make. And the problem is it's coming due. And I'm not trying to sell you on anything. You go out there and you look at the retaining walls. Some of them look awesome, but some of them look like they're getting ready to fall over. And there's just so much of that. $170 a month is a lot of money. But so is an assessment of $10,000. And, when we talked to people and we were trying to come up with, and I came in on the end of this, and it was, oh my God, the world's getting ready to end. No, it's not. We have time, but we don't have a whole lot of time. If we don't start addressing this stuff this year, the reserve number is going to drop way below 10%, which means we're going to have to borrow money in order to fix stuff that needs to be fixed, which means it's going to have to be paid back at a certain time. And I'm not saying we're going to try and figure out whatever it is that you guys decide that you're going to allow us to figure out. Or if you want to be on the board, I'm sure that there's people here that don't want to be there anymore. But those are the tough decisions that we're going to have to make. And it's just, it's not fair and it's not fun, but inflation is inflation, and deferred maintenance that piles on and piles on and piles on eventually has to be paid for. I don't mean to lecture, but that's the way I see it is.
Next, I'll get to
Yes.
Deanna. I'm sorry. Sorry, I'll get to you next. I think Deanna wants.
Hi, my name's Dee. I'm on Lakeside Lane. I've been here 15 years. And Scott, what I want to know is all these pictures of bad things that you're showing us. Why weren't they fixed 5 years ago? Why weren't they fixed 3 years ago? Why weren't they fixed a year ago? When no one had, I'm not done. No one had a problem with that when you'd call and say, hey, there's a big old limb down there. They would be fixed. We had the money. What happened since May? Where's the money? Where's the management? Or is it somebody before you got in? Thank you.
That is an awesome question.
We'll answer it.
Thanks. Looking back at everything, I cannot point at a bad decision that was made by somebody that they just decided we're just gonna screw everybody. They're human, and they didn't know what they didn't know. I am getting there. The maintenance crew has been asking for more money for the last 5 or 6 years. They have not wanted to raise the dues in order to pay for the things that needed to be done, and now they're coming due. It hasn't been brought up because this discussion sucks. Nobody wants to be here. Forcing this discussion is one of my core values. And this discussion being brought to the floor, whatever you decide, you are not going to leave here not knowing what the situation is. Is it somebody's fault? Not really. They didn't want to do it. We can do it next year. It's not an emergency right now. We'll do it later. We don't want to raise the dues. We don't want to have a special assessment. All of those things boards don't want to do. And having this conversation is kind of this is me forcing the conversation that we need to have this conversation. Because if you didn't have it, and we do have a blowout, we're going to be in the same situation that those people are. What happens if the bulkhead blows out and the foundations fail and we've got neighbors that are staying in a hotel for 3 years? Those are the questions that need to be addressed, and ignoring them doesn't make them go away. Somebody else had their hand up first. Sorry.
I'm Debbie Markley, and I've lived here for 10 years. I live on Ball Harbor Drive, and I understand these needs. However, this sudden request for a big increase is hitting me really hard personally. I've just realized I need major foundation work on my house. That's going to cost me over $20,000 between the foundation work and the subsequent repairs to my house. I'm struggling just to figure out how I'm going to pay for that. Now I've got this huge HOA increase to worry about. So other people may be more financially blessed than I am. I don't know, because some people don't seem like it's a big deal, but for me, it is a big deal. It means losing my house, forcing me to sell. If I can.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hi, Virgil and my wife right there, Mandy Romero. We're at 1801 Starboard. If you don't know that house, that's the Jungle Corner house last year. When you get around that corner, you can't see the place. So we wanted to be part of this community for years. It was a great place for me when we drove by it and said, hey, look, maybe we can afford one in this community. First thing we did was try to clean up the area, make sure it's like to our neighbors, when you're walking by, you can see an actual house, not just some bushes. So I have to agree with Jack, with everybody here, including this lady, about we understand this need to make sure our community is going to be ready for next year and the future. But the way I saw these things, you went from what is now worst case scenario, and this is what we need. To get there, though, there's several factors that I feel wasn't considered, and that is the community's well-being at this time. We had the hottest summer. Foundations are cracking. I know what you mean, because I'm worried about that with the house that I just purchased. We literally renovated that whole property, and I could already tell 2 doors are not opening because foundation I know is being affected. $200, I'm sorry, correction, 179, 170 a month. That means I'm not going to continue with my landscaping that I want to do, or before I do it, of course, I got to submit a request to the board, make sure that, hey, I want to do this thing. But, and then at the same time, $300 for electricity. How long is our summer going to be? That's all I think a lot of people here are saying, is that we know these are needed, but we need to come on in a phase-in approach. 463, Jack, you are right. If they're breaking the law, they can't be doing that. The bylaw, I mean. Okay, but okay, that is the CPI. Okay, granted, but we need additional fund to hit our numbers. 179 to be added immediately is not going to do it, or it's not going to appease your community. We got to do a better job there. And like you said, Scott, you know, maybe more committees to kind of come up with different point of views of how we can come up with these numbers. But you're a financial guy. You're going to give us the worst case scenario. We're laymen. And to us, when you hit us with the worst case scenario, our option is sell the house, not pay the, not pay the HOA increase, have this kind of conversations. And instead, we could, we want to be part of the solution and help you all out by saying, okay, 430, 460, maybe 475. If we do 475, what's our number going to be in 2 years? Can we hit some of the reserved numbers that we need to be at? In 6 years, you do a phase-in. 600, I agree with him. I'm sorry. I've lived in so many communities. I've never seen HOA numbers go down. Bottom line, I don't know any communities that doesn't lower their HOA maintenance. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, there you go, John. And thanks for your service.
Yeah. Well, let me just say. What? I just wanted to summarize. I think that the consensus here is everybody is concerned about this big raise, and the what we have to vote on is 1 or 2 or nothing. And I think but you said you can't revise that. Is that correct?
Can't revise what?
The vote. Yeah.
Or like a different assessment.
I said it was already approved by the attorney, as well as what they've been doing in the budgeting has been approved by the attorney as per our bylaws. So we have things to look at, and it's not going to be done tonight, but we'll report back to you after we've spoken with our attorney regarding both of these issues.
Okay, well, I would say if you can't change the ballot, then I think everybody should vote no, and then you can come back and give us a decent ballot.
And that's why we're here,
because everybody will have that opportunity.
Yeah. And you always did. You always have.
Hi, everyone. I don't think any of y'all know us. I'm Jenna Yost. This is my husband, Cody Yost. We live at 18309 Sandy Cove. We've been here for about 3 years. I know we haven't really been that involved, so sorry we haven't been that involved in the community, but we're here now. I wanted to bring up 2 things. The first one is the fact of the 463 and just the overall increase. Why haven't we looked into budgeting with what we currently have? I feel like the wages and whatnot have been a very large percentage of what we have been spending. And I feel like we can cut costs more within wages and go from there. I feel like only going to the 463, say we do that, it would force us to actually budget with what we have and go from there. Then second thing, Cody might have to speak on this too, but why haven't we considered a master policy for all of our homes, similar to like how condos do? Is that something that could potentially save us some money? Is that something that has been already considered or has not worked in the past? So, is there any other question? So that's all I have.
Which contractors would you want us not to hire, or which employees would you want us to fire?
Either wage adjustments, we can cut pension plans possibly if you are in 2022. We're no longer.
It is not a pension, it's a simple IRA. There's been a lot of misinformation. I apologize. I absolutely agree. And that is one of the things that we really want to do. But there's contracts that we're in, there's other things that we're in. None of it can really be done in the next month or two. And we need to study before we decide we're not going to have this contractor versus that contractor. I think there's a good opportunity to cut costs. I don't think we need to rip pieces out of the engine before we figure out what that piece actually does. What was your other question? The master policy, I think, is a great idea. I think, and I would have to check, that we would have to rewrite our bylaws in order to do something like that. Again, I said I think, and I would have to research.
Hold on, he's speaking, please.
No, I don't know, but it would take a little bit of research. I think that's a great idea. The contract that we have for our insurance, I believe, is good through next December. So in order to change December next year. So in order to change our insurance, we would have to do the research this coming year and then change it. It's not a bad idea. You know, we even talked about, should we take insurance out of the HOA fee assessment and do an assessment every year for just insurance. My buddy that's going through their problem in Florida, they ripped it out and said, everybody gets an annual assessment for your portion of the total HOA insurance every year, like we do with the termites. There's all kinds of things that are on the table, but we're trying to walk that fine line between not hurting as many people as we can and solving the problems that we can. None of your problems or none of your solutions were bad. I think they're really good, and I think they need to be studied, and I think there is good opportunity for change, but we need to figure out what we're going to do for next year because we have obligations to get the budget in place. Yes.
Full-time employees. Well, they can before, do they pay any of the insurance?
I believe that they pay all of their insurance. No, they don't?
We pay 100% for the employee only.
Oh.
No family.
Families covered, employees covered, families not. You guys, one at a time.
The fact that you said that we could do some more research, I was just implying that we should try our best to work with what we've got while doing this research. I do understand that things need to be done, and like there are definitely things that very much need improvement or repair. But I would really like for us to go forward with most minimal increase and try our best to figure out ways to budget from there and then look at further increases if they are absolutely necessary. Thank you.
The problem is a lot of long-term.
Pretty much, I'm just saying, I want to be able to sit down and give us all the time to research into those things, because I feel very rushed, to be honest, and it's very nerve wracking going from the ones have the increase, like we've all said. but-
Start to make a very good point on the insurance. Insurance covers until December next year, correct? But part of the study would be what we do in the third year. Can we lower the cost, and therefore, the increase doesn't necessarily have to be 600 feet now, all the way to whenever we get that reserve number.
So you
Just
saw
what's
the,
behind it, that's it.
sorry,
Too many questions. So to answer your question about the rush, we didn't really realize where we were until the reserve study came out. We really didn't realize where we were until the reserve study came out. The reserve study came out, the budget's due. We know we have roofs that have to be done next year. That's a huge number. And then most of the other stuff, we're trying to kick back. That $600 is pushing back a lot of stuff through 4 years, which really should be done in 2 years. That $550,000 that's in the budget for next year is stuff that really needs to be done. The $750,000 worth of stuff the year after is stuff that really has to be done. I'm not doing worst case scenario. I'm showing you stuff that's coming due. And if we don't address it, some of it has to be done. Those roofs have to be done. You can't kick roofs down the road or else the insurance can't cover it. The other stuff, we could kick some of it down the road, but there's a good likelihood that that bulkhead that I showed you with broken pieces that's already starting to slough over, there's a lot of that. Incremental, the panic really comes with, oh my God, look where we are. You know, for almost a month, it was, well, we really need to keep about, $1 million. That's a big number, but that number is wrong. And when you actually look at how to do a reserve study and how to calculate those numbers, and you go from, we really need to have $1 million in reserves to, oh my God, we should have had $4 million in reserves, because nobody knew what they didn't know. We have reserves. It's about $400,000. $400,000 is a lot of money. But for our budget for this marina, it's really underfunded. And there's construction stuff that has to happen. And there's, on top of that, there's construction stuff that absolutely should happen. And if we don't get that 600, the absolutely should isn't going to be done. The stuff that has to be done will be done. But the should is being pushed more and more, which means we're reducing our reserve as well as pushing stuff down the road. And a lot of that stuff just can't really be pushed down the road too much longer. It sucks. And I don't like the fact that we're in that situation. But the more you look at the numbers, the more you realize, the more you walk the property. Go walk the property. Some of it looks awesome, but some of it absolutely doesn't.
Gentlemen have something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Robert Vaughn, excuse me, Lighthouse. First of all, thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Scott Stillman. Awesome presentation. Thank you to all. if you've ever been out there, you know I walk the property. Okay, I've been looking at this happening for 12 years. I've known for 12 years that things are kind of going downhill a little bit, no problem. But I walk the property. I walk the boardwalks, the marina. I go to the pool. I got a freaking boat in my backyard. I've got a beautiful backyard, except this year because it's hadn't rained. We sit out on the deck. $600 is a lot of money, no doubt about it. But I think I'm getting my money's worth. $600 is good amount to pay for what I have here. So I'm all for it.
I saw Sally go up a while back. Sally.
Hello, I'm Sally. Can y'all hear me? I'm Sally Whittington at 18226 Lakeside. I've lived here for 35 years, since 1988. To answer a couple of the questions that just came up, this isn't where I was standing up for, but I even talked to my friend at NASA who works in mission control. Last night we were at the ball game. And I said, does NASA pay 100% for your health insurance? And her husband is with NASA also. No, absolutely not. NASA does not pay an individual who works there 100% of their health insurance. That's one question, and that's NASA. Secondly, yes, I've lived here long enough to know that we did have a policy that was for every townhome for insurance. It was not just flood insurance. It was part of our maintenance fee, and we each had a different amount. I was so shocked recently to find that we all paid the same amount, whether we live in a $1,000 square foot home or a huge home on Lighthouse. That's a big deal, you know? We didn't used to have that. Everyone paid according to whatever the maintenance fee was, plus that portion of the insurance for the major policy for the subdivision. It worked so great. The only reason it went out, I think, is because the State Farm company that managed it went out. They hated it because they loved us, but they had to let it go. Okay, here's what I really stood up for. I have a real issue with painting of my home on a regular basis that I would like to know when that's going to happen in advance, like even years or 2 years in advance. And also roof replacement. I guess that asked that all the time by the insurance companies, and I really don't have a good handle on that. So I wanted to I wrote some of my thoughts down if you'll just have patience with me on something. I feel like we are being rushed into an important decision that has never, ever occurred in 35 years. That's going to have ramifications for a long time to come. We need time to step back and analyze now before we tack on another 120 for 550 or 170 for 600 to our fees. I have found some important discrepancies that have been sent out in the last few weeks. The one that we received by email, which was before the one we got mailed to us, it said, if we increased our fee to 600,000, the option reasonably allows for renewal of and ongoing extensive maintenance for all facilities and amenities. The amount could require longer replacement. Now, this is for $600. This amount could require, I'm reading it, longer replacement cycle for roofing and painting. I wrote up next to that when I was reading through this, really? Even for $600, it's going to be a longer replacement cycle. And that's what I talked about 2 days ago, and everybody looked funny that I had read this, and I did find it in the reading. An emergency reserve fund goal of 70% of anticipated costs should be reached in 6 years. And again, it mentioned on the 550, same thing. Which is right, because the one we got mailed to us, weirdly enough, had that statement and only that statement removed. Now that really bothered me, that it was in the statement that was emailed to us, But in the one that was mailed to our home, the whole page was the same, but those statements were removed. If they were incorrect, we should have been told that by the board. We made a mistake on the email that was sent you. This is what it said, and it doesn't say that now. Instead of us having to figure that out on our own, that bothers me for what's called transparency. The last thing I want to say is I am a math major. Now to the math, just to give everybody a feel for what we're looking at. With $600 per townhome for each of us after 6 years, which is what they're talking about here, we will only be at 70% of the needed reserves. Let me tell you how much that is. Each of us will be paying 600 times 12 for a year's basis, $7,200 a year times 6 years. In 6 years, you're going to pay $43,200 of maintenance fees for your townhome. Now multiply that by 237 townhomes. We will have $10,238,400, and we're still at only 70%. If you do it 100% reserves, we need $14,626,286. I am shocked. I am shocked. That number was never given to us today. $14,600,000 for our community to be at 100%. I think we need time to digest this. I think we need to look at our current budget and maybe get another second opinion on the reserve study. All we have is Scott. I'm sorry, Scott, I just am used to second opinions. We had, for 13 years, we had a finance planner who owned his own business named Mark Hess, who did our reserve, our treasury. I would like to hear what Mark Hess has to say on this. I know he's resigned, but I still would like to know. I think he managed our townhomes pretty well. So the last thing I have is, please get another opinion on the reserves before we tack on 600. They can still raise to 463, and they will, but don't be pressured on this until we get true transparencies and funds required are analyzed more thoroughly. Thank you all so much.
Well said.
You want to talk? Yeah.
Hold on.
But let her just talk. Let her.
I'm going to be brief, okay?
It's gonna be brief.
I've been raising my hand since everybody started. I'm Joan Addison. I've been here 27 years. I'm at 18054 Lakeside Lane. And I got here and we were just doing the flood insurance, so I know how that worked. I wanted to mention, first of all, in the cover letter that you had for the hard copy that came out via snail mail, it mentions that the board, and also in the email too, the board wants at least $600. Nowhere have you disclosed what you really want, except for on the Google Drive, where you say you really want $770 a month. Hello, transparency. I also want to mention that, you know, you've compared us to a lot of condominiums, and they include insurance, they include water, they include sewer, they include garbage. Some have cable, you know, they have security gates, a lot of amenities, and in what's included in those dues that we don't have, that we pay separately. Also, you keep mentioning Bayfront Towers Fire. Well, they have their insurance included in their dues. If we had a major fire here, I'd have to go to the Hartford for my place. You'd have to go to whoever covers here, you know, and so on and so forth. It wouldn't be just lickety split across the everywhere. So that those issues are not apples to apples. That's also, right. Yeah. I wanted to lastly say, have you thought about, as you're looking at this huge increase, all the people that are going to be potentially foreclosing, all the people who recently bought into here who have no equity? I've been here seeing the ups and downs of when we've had foreclosures. We had, I'm going to say it was about 10 years ago, a homeowner owned 40 $40,000. There were some title issues and they couldn't get the money and it wasn't there. $40,000. What would happen if you had 5 or 10 of those? Okay. You need to plan for these things. It's not about, oh, we need this $170 extra per month. What's going to be the repercussions of it? And that's all I have to say. Here.
So yeah, regarding that HOA comparison, I spent a lot of time on that HOA comparison and it was very, very subjective. And I stated that it was very, very subjective. As a real estate agent, are you in real estate?
Well, I had my license.
Okay, so you know, when you do a search for real estate with a condo and or a townhome, it's always lumped together. Always condos, townhomes. Am I correct, Julie? When you're looking, you can separate. Terry's not here. Yeah. So we pulled it. And we actually use townhomes as well as condos. And you could have just ignored condos. But what we did was we tried to equalize and we tried to actually allow for those numbers, for those to balance out so that there was numbers, values given so that we could actually have a comparison because it's not fair to compare. It's in fact impossible to compare. But what it does is it allows information so that you're able to say, this is what they pay and this is what they get for what they pay. And that's what we tried to do. Our attempt was never to say, look at the value Bal Harbour is because we have all these things, including ourselves in structural insurance and or flood. We never did that. So anybody that looked at that comparison, it was subjective. We made that clear. It's not used in the presentation. I want everybody to understand that was really a way for people to get better information, to know what communities around us, townhomes and condos, are paying monthly fees for. And so that is what that was used. That was the full intention of that. And again, it's on a table as an additional document for you to look at. So you could tear it apart all you want, but I have to say, we spent a lot of time for the sole purpose is to say, what are people around us paying? And some of them were $200 a month, and some of them were very much unlike us at $1,000 a month. Some of the very, very closest to us just had a big assessment. I don't know if you noticed that, but just a big, and they're also on a sliding scale depending on square footage, but up to $4,200 assessment. So inflation is hitting us. The cost of things. How many of you have gone to the grocery store lately? I mean, and not to mention my body. Okay, my body's failing. I go to the doctor. I need more and more medications. Things that age require more attention. They require more money. They require more things to keep it going. And that's where we're at now. I value every single comment. I promise you I do, and I take it to heart. But the fact is, there has been no intention of deceptiveness or a lack of transparency by any one of us. We have poured our hearts and souls into trying to make this as good and as comprehensive as possible. And it's difficult to actually get the criticism, not the constructive criticism, but the criticism that's just pure harsh when we have actually poured hours into trying to do this for the betterment of Bal Harbour. We're here to hear you. We want to hear you. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had 4 meetings like this. So I'll pass the mic now, but please consider that when you're
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I started to take some notes, but my pen ran out when I did like 3 lines like this, so I'm gonna be a little off the cuff. I think it's unfortunate that we're not focused on the issue at hand. Instead, we seem to be focusing on who's the bad person here? Where's my money? What's the board doing with it? What are they, crazy? I can't afford this. I'm not saying everybody can afford this, but what I am saying is that they work for free. They volunteer to do a job that none of us want to do. Nobody here wants to do that. So I just want to say that I appreciate what y'all are doing. Blame attribution is something that should not be talked about in this room right now. No one should be to blame for what happened. You know, where's the money? What happened last year, the year before? Why aren't those things fixed? That's got no place here. We are where we are, and we have to deal with the issue that we have. I do have one specific question for you, Scott, and it's one word answer only. Are the calculations that you did that are stretched out over literally decades, are they adjusted for inflation? It's only a yes or no answer, no explanation necessary. I just want to know the answer to that. Okay. That's an issue, as you know. That in my humble opinion, that's an issue. Because prices don't go down, they go over and above inflation. So anyway, that's one issue that I have with that. I always do my calculations for everything I do. It has to be adjusted for inflation one way or the other. Otherwise, you have a terrible problem down the road when you try to retire.
Can I give it 10 seconds? 5 seconds?
I just wanted to voice it, and if it's you can answer that somewhere else. So I have a couple of other things to say, and that is that I don't want to pay another $170 a month. To be quite honest, I don't want to pay what I'm paying now. I want it to be free, but that's unreasonable. I understand that things cost money, and I've been living, I'm sorry, I'm Tom Ring. I live here with my lovely wife who is listening on Zoom, and she's the one I keep telling you about that. She's out of town on business right now. So I live on Bell Harbor. I've been there since 2016. And it doesn't matter if I've lived there a month or 40 years. We all have the same right to a property here. What I don't like is when someone says, oh, I've lived here 30 years. So they don't have any more right to that property than I do. We're all, what's that?
The president had told people to tell them how many years. They just followed orders.
What I'm trying to say, though, is it's been brought up in this meeting like it's a rose to wear or something. Anyway, we're all the same, whether we've been here a month or 30 years or 40 years, we have the same rights, we have the same responsibilities. What's that? No, can't. What I do want to say is that I understand things go up in price. I've been, HOA fees are, if it goes to $600, it's about double in my 8 years here. Do the math on that, it's 9-ish% or something like that increase. More than inflation, obviously, but not unreasonable. I do agree with something Robert said. When I look out from my deck with my wife drinking a martini, and I look out over there, I think, you know what? I don't care what it's costing me. I'm having a good time and I like this. And do I wish it was less? Yes, I do. And I empathize with the people that have more difficulty financially keeping these homes here. But waterfront communities are not cheap. Everybody knows that with their insurance that came up this year. I'm sure everyone's seen an increase. It's not a nice thing, but it's just the way it is. That's what it costs to live here. I don't know what the answer is, but I do know that regardless of how much money I'm going to pay a month, there's always going to be some things here that could be better, could be improved. You know, I'm like you, Robert, my wife and I, not so much in the summer lately. We don't walk around as much because it's been pretty miserable. You know, we walk around a lot and we go, oh, you know, those stairs are falling apart. Oh, you know, this needs to be repaired. This needs to be fixed. All these little things that are around. And do I want to pay more money to fix those things? No, I don't. But my belief is putting out extra money to improve the look of this community that we live in costs us extra money a month. But my belief is that that maintains our real estate values, which is important to all of us. And someday we'll get that return when we sell it. like I say, I don't know what the answer is here. I wanted to get some information and that's why I'm here. Like you said earlier, Scott, there are some things that we can do to save money here. And I think we all see things that maybe, oh, that's not an efficient way to do things. Maybe it could be better. Maybe there's different things to do there. And I think that's something we need to look at, because when I look at finances, I look at two things. If I'm not meeting budget, I can either increase the income, which for this is just paying more HOAs, or I can decrease the costs, which is doing something more efficiently or dropping something. Or I'm not saying people need to be dropped, people need to be paid less, but there's always a more efficient way to do things. And I think that we probably don't do a good job of looking at all of those possibilities here. So anyway, y'all are all my neighbors. I'm not angry with anybody. I'm certainly not angry with the board. Y'all are doing everything you can to help us out, and I appreciate it a lot. I don't want to be up there doing what y'all are doing. There's a lot of hate going on because y'all are the delivery people for some negative news. And I apologize, not from me, because I'm not angry, but I apologize that people are angry at you because you people are delivering the message.
Okay. Oh, do you want to?
Yeah, just real quick, two little quick things. The inflation question.
Yeah.
Reserve studies are always done at present value, and then you redo them on a regular basis to make sure that the costs are correct. That's just the standard. I completely agree, but that's how you figure out what the reserve number should be. And then the reserve study, I didn't do the reserve study. I just brought the numbers and made it look pretty. These guys all did the reserve study. They came to my house and said, hey, come help us and be the bad guy to deliver the news, because you understand the numbers and you understand how to present it. And I would like to take credit for all of the work, but I didn't do 10% of it. So thank you guys.
Hi, my name is Julie Woods, and my husband Steve and I live at 18505 Sandy Cove, and we've been here a little over 3 years. And we love our community. We love our neighbors. This has been our all-time favorite place to live, and we will live here. I'm a real estate agent, so we've moved a lot. We're not moving anymore because I love it so much. But what I'm not here to advocate on how you vote. We have a choice, and we can vote for however we want. What I do want to explain is the importance of the financial stability of a property like this. So we are not considered a condominium community, so don't shoot me when I say this. But anytime you go to purchase a property, you have a right to get what's called a resale certificate. That resale, and I encourage all of my clients to get it. The people that check, I don't need the HOA information, that's a bad move. The resale certificate is a TREC promulgated form that has very specific questions on it. It also gives you a copy of the most recent budget. It gives you the CC&Rs, the bylaws. It gives you all of that information. And I tell my clients, you should read that. You should read that before you purchase in a place. Here's the reason why. One of the questions is, how much do you have in reserves? So I have represented clients in condominium complexes. Condominiums require it. There's no choice. The owner has to provide a resale certificate at their cost to the buyer. Some townhome communities do require it. Our community does not require it. I highly encourage when people buy that they should get it anyway. I went back into my old files today. I was speaking with someone who was asking some questions about resale certificates. And I went, you know what? Yeah, Barb, you asked me about resale certificates. And I said, I'm going to go and look at some of my old files. So last year I sold in a townhome community that was built in the 70s. I pulled out the resale certificate. They had $1.3 million in reserves. I went to a condominium complex that I have sold multiple units in the medical center area. They have $1 million in reserves. I find nothing in my files of any complex that has $300,000 to $400,000 in reserves. When you sell a condominium, it's a whole different ballgame when you're getting loans. That's a whole complicated thing because they have to have certain things in order to get loans. Freddie Mac has very specific guidelines. There's like 3 condominium complexes in the city of Houston that even qualify for an FHA loan. We're considered single family, so we do. But my point is that the reserves is a very important piece of that, a question that is asked. And I want to know what that is. And I hope that my clients want to know that. So yes, I know we all have different opinions. Yes, we can probably save some cost for whatever reason. There seems to be a focus on the employees. If you count up what their salaries are and all the taxes and Medicaid and Social Security, and even if we take away and make them pay a little bit of their health insurance, that's not, in my opinion, if I ran some quick numbers, that's not going to save us and get us where we need to be. Steve and I just went through and we're like, okay, what if we saved, I don't know, this amount of money per year? Yes, that's great. And we should do that for sure. I agree, but it's not going to get us where we need to be. And like I said, it's super important to have financial stability in your community. That's it.
Well said. Thank you so much. I asked Joy just recently about resale certificates because I was curious about that. And she said a handful. She could count on one hand how many people actually purchased the resale certificate when they moved into Bal Harbour the past year. So we've sold multiple units and she had a handful. So just so you know. Anybody else? Your realtor should tell you about it. No idea.
We have a question, sir?
Yeah. I'm Casey Ewing. I live at 18159 Bal Harbour Drive, and we've been here for 40 years.
And you did the research.
I don't need the roads.
And tell them you did the reserve study.
What I wanted to say is this, first of all, thanks to everyone
Yes.
that participated in putting this together, the work that you've done before this. In our company, we are a structural engineering firm. We've done reserve studies in much detail. I know how much work goes into that, and I appreciate any that offers that has been offered in that line. I want to also say this about Bal Harbour, and having had the privilege of living here this long, Bal Harbour went through a catastrophe in 1983. We were hit by Hurricane Alicia. It devastated us. I just happened to be in charge of storing that. So I know what it takes to put this place in the kind of shape that you want it to be in. Believe me, it was much worse than we're even talking about in terms of the reserve study. We have a little saying. One of the sayings is the townhome in a condo is only as good as the maintenance. And I think that's true, of course, even if you have a single home. You have got to keep it up. We have an annual fee that we pay. The gentleman back there said it very well. We have a real situation here, probably second to none. We were trying to describe something that we don't have, we do have. And I think all of us appreciate that. In order to do it and to get there, get the reserve study where it should be, but more importantly right now, to get the things done that have to be done, we can do that. And how do we do it? As we've done it before with work. And we get, as this gentleman has said, we need cooperation from everybody to help us do that. $160, $170. When it dropped down into my lap, And I've had a lot of research studies and a lot of money to think about in terms of monthly fees. It hit me real quickly. How did that happen? To need so much in such a short period of time. As the gentleman said, there's no sense in hassling over how that all came about, but we have to fix it. We cannot allow it to go on if it's in as bad a condition as some of the piling is out there on the bulkheads. More importantly, though, we've got to keep our homes up. We have to do our roofs. We have to do our painting. One of the things that we want to think about, and I assume this has been done in a research study, is that our maintenance force for a long period of time has replaced all the wood out here with hardy board. This hardy board is second to none when it comes to length of materials. So from that standpoint, a lot of our homes are going to have much less cost in the maintenance. I'm not quite sure how far Rick is along on all of those. Some of them weren't involved with the same kind of materials, but nevertheless, we have done maintenance before. It's going to be cheaper because we did the right kind of maintenance. We have to continue to do that. I want to ask two questions. One, if you take the money, as somebody did, $600 a month, $7,200 a year, take that $7,200 a year and multiply by 257, whatever that is, it comes out to be $1,760,000. $1,760,000 per year. I would like to know, just real quick, one answer, what is the budget for a year? Our latest year, if we don't have it, or something else.
Our operations and maintenance. Our basic operations and maintenance, turning the light switch on, for lack of a better description, including the insurance that we have to pay on common properties. That makes up insurance is over 20% of the budget. But that budget number, as it stands right now, what we're talking about is $1,127,260 a year. Whatever we get over and above that is what's spent on capital improvements and reserves. So depending on where it falls, on how much we collect, we can allocate it to doing the capital improvements. Roofs is a priority. That's number one on the list. Painting and siding. Rick has been trying to replace, as he needs to replace wood, he doesn't replace it with wood, he replaces it with hardy board. Longer life, just like you said. Those costs, starting from the roofs down, have a priority. The problem that we've had is the difference between what our base operation and maintenance and capital expenditures. We should be spending, based on the reserve study, and Rolf did most of the information, but I've worked with him on it. We should be spending about $550,000 a year on ongoing repairs, roof repairs on time, getting the pool taken care of, getting the tennis courts taken care of. We've done maintenance on the marina. Last year we spent this year, based on where we are, we've spent $418,000 on capital expenditure items. Some of that came out of reserves. That's why our reserve number is going down, because we didn't have the money to address 408, but it had to be done. If there's anybody here that knows, Rick has worked with a very tight checkbook. He hasn't had excess money to throw away.
we can run to. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
So that's why them on the computer. Yeah, that's why I just texted it.
Okay. I apologize, I just got those in the mail at 3 o'clock and I didn't have a chance to charge them all the way.
All right, my second question was, can we decrease the size of our main marina so that we would have less to maintain? That's a lot of money going in and out of there. So we maintain it maybe to meet whatever kind of regulations we have. I don't know how the leasing goes. But we could perhaps make it to accommodate those that normally would rent here. Is that possible?
Microphone.
A lot of questions, but finally, another structural engineer in the group. I have one too. We have a lot of what if, what can we do? A lot of project in front of us. The marina, we have 2 or 3 big options we're trying to, to study and see what we can do with it. Minimizing it, replacing it. Actually, we are actually starting conversation with the city of Nassau Bay. They want to have this area flourish a little bit, and they're willing to help us do something and some study in the, as far as the marina is concerned. And as far as the marina, among others, we're looking at several options. One of them is hopefully repair just part of it and maintain part of it and putting on a 10 years cycle by which we can have 1 or 2 of the slips, whatever is available, and the rest we'll just wait until we get some more money. So that's on the table. The other thing is asking for some partnership with the city of Nassau Bay and even the Hilton. We don't know. It's a lot of things on the table. A lot of people discussing that. And we are taking every element of what we have and trying to figure out how can we improve it. Like when I looked at the numbers, we have the issue of the roofs, but we have to do that. And we're spending a lot of money on the flat roofs we have. And I was amazed how many flat roofs we have in the area, because they have asphalt and we have our cycle of cold weather and summers, and the asphalt is disintegrating everywhere. So we're trying to figure out how can we get rid of the flat roofs with a pitch roof somehow, and as we replace them and have to fix them, we move in. Same thing with a bulkhead. There's so many ways to build a bulkhead, as you know, and we have the timber, and it lasts quite a bit, 20, 30 years if it's done right. But the material to replace the timber bulkheads now is not the same as it used to be 30 years ago. It does not live as long. What can we do to go a different configuration of sheet piling? We have a lot of options to go with, how much money we have to deal with that. We have a long list, about 2 or 3 pages of things that we, as we get time and money, try to minimize the maintenance, increase the cycle of replacement. All that eventually is going to roll into savings, and we get into much better shape. It's a lot of moving parts right now, and right now all we're trying to do is patch up the wrong places. I mean the damage issues, and we're losing that battle. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but.
Well, perhaps you did. I'm a little hard of hearing. Right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I guess all I'd say is it possible? Maybe that doesn't happen, but would it be possible from the standpoint of the engineers, Corps of Engineers, or whoever is the governing body out there? Could you make the marina smaller?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And it's a GLO, and we have a lease, and we can make it smaller, but when I start looking at the cost of fixing the marina.
Yes.
Our marina is basically few boards, some timber piling and some walkways. The cost to replace the whole marina you'll be amazed how inexpensive it is if we have to fix it. So the marina is not really, it's kind of like needs a lot of repairs, but it was hit several times with storms. But the repair of the marina, I think we can catch up with it very quick if we have just a little bit of cash to do it. And it's just a walkway, basically a walkway, but it's on the water. Instead of working, on land, you just work it from the water. The bulkheads, on the other hand, are much more expensive to fix, much more elaborate. And we cannot go repair 10 feet of slips, at a time. We have to go with a certain stretch to make it economically feasible to have a contractor willing to come and fix that. So it's all I'm saying is a lot of moving things. We are looking as much as we can in all of it, and we just start looking at it. And yes, sir.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah, sure.
One of the reasons that I brought this up was Rick made a big point of this in the main meeting about the costs that they're incurring out there, that being one of them, and a big one. And so I just thought over the years how many times I've looked out there, and of course, not all of the slips are taken. I don't know what the percentage is today in relation to what it was 20 years ago, but you perhaps do.
Casey, I'm the head of the yacht committee, as I told you when we introduced each other, and I have that information. I do not have it in my back pocket. I don't have it in my head. Okay, I'd be happy to stop by your place tomorrow and go over that with you. I can say that around in 2014, we were operating at 100% out there. Every slip was filled and everything. We were raking in money. Okay, it was wonderful. Okay, and it's been ratcheting down ever since. That I'll just say blankly. The rest of it, I'd love to go over with it. As Rauf was saying, the maintenance is not such a big thing as the insurance alone, just the insurance item. 3 years ago it was 20,000, now it's 88. Okay, and that's a big chunk. That's why I raised the issue back in May. Okay, that was the only thing that I knew about.
And what is the insurance rate based on?
That I don't know exactly. Well, it is, I mean, it's the size of it and everything like that. And we working with a new insurance company, and part of it might be wind damage, and we're trying to decide whether with that 88,000, there's 250,000 deductible. Okay, which is huge. I mean, we don't have that to spend on the marina if anything happened anyway. So, but I don't want to get too far off subject, and I can do it. Particularly, I'd be happy to meet with you tomorrow.
I don't want to play on this.
Yeah.
They want 46 were leased and 24 owners had boats in the marina. And more recently, it was mentioned that we now have 50 leads.
How much per slip? How much we're making off of it?
I don't have that, but I just have how many.
I think that that's something worth discussing again. We have 2 more meetings. We've got notes. We're clear on what needs to be discussed based on that topic, as well as many others. We're shy of just 2.5 hours. So unless somebody has a burning question, we'll wrap it up for today and then take it back up again on the 16th. So, yeah.
I'm Charlotte Protka, and I live on Sailboat Drive, and I'm one of the originals. And and I appreciate what all of y'all have done. We all want the same. We want a good community. We do want that. And you know, I'm all for about Harbor. I've lived here since I was almost a kid, but it's all come on so quickly. And we need to take a step back and research and do a lot of comparison shopping. You know, there was a house that needed a new roof and I was getting $11,000 quote. So when it was, anyway, I drove through a subdivision. I found some workers in a subdivision that had a company and they did it for $5. You know, there are costs going up. There's other people that are negotiable and costs are coming down. So everything's not fixed in stone that everything's going to go wow, 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 wow. And we're looking at the worst case scenarios. And, you know, I've lived here through Alicia. Most of my neighbors didn't have any problems whatsoever. Didn't affect me at all. Didn't affect most of my neighbors. So, you know, I remember it. I remember what all of this looked like back then. But, you know, we're not looking at just emergency. We're looking at the fun stuff too. And when we're looking at emergency, okay, I can understand that. But, you know, they're also talking about, okay, well, it'd be nice to have a little gazebo. It'd be nice to have this pavilion. It'd be nice to have, you know, the screen over the pool. It'd be nice to have what else is not on the list. Well, these nice to haves are nice to have, but if we can't afford them right now, we can't afford them right now. They're nice to work towards. It's good to, let's just step back. And I am for voting no right now, just so we can step back, take a little breather and do more research because we all want a good community. I love Bal Harbour. I'm all for it. And maybe something can be worked out with the police department or with Hilton or whatever about the marina. Maybe there are a lot of solutions we haven't looked at. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and close tonight. Thank you so much for coming. Those of you that are still here, thank you. And I hope you come back again and join us on the 16th. And thank you for your time.
You know, I look around and everything.
This car will.